Hey, WorkBenchCon is the conference for makers and content creators. I've been here, and this was about day three, the last day of the conference, and just going to give you some highlights. It was a wonderful conference this year. Everybody talked about what a great positive vibe everyone had at the conference, and it was very productive. Everyone chose different sessions to go to. They give you a lot of options. I'm going to touch today on some of the things that I noticed in the last day. I'm going to keep it short. And then on Monday night, AJ and I will, AJ from AJ Built This, will be my guest on the live stream, and we will discuss more about the conference. But for day three, I want you to know that we started off the day with some breakfast, and then John from Lincoln Street Woodworks gave a keynote address to everyone, which was really great. He talked about things, just a few highlights. He talked about how marketing has changed over the past few years. There's voices on the internet that need to be taken into account. And although there have been changes in marketing, we need to have a plan how you're going to market your videos, how you're going to market your products, and so forth. He also gave an example of setting the foundation of your business, and he talked about Jonathan Katz Moses, which kind of stuck with me. Whenever Jonathan started out, he didn't quickly look for sponsors and quick fix ways to get a lot of traffic. He was setting the foundation for the business that he has grown. And if you're familiar with his work and what he provides to others, and not just content, but in tools and tool accessories and so forth, without that foundation and without keeping control of his own company, he wouldn't have been able to do this. Also, John from Lincoln Street said, remember, you get out of it what you put into it. And that includes the last day of the conference. If you put into it a lot of effort, then you're more likely to get a lot out of it. He had listened to the WorkBenchCon follow-up videos from last year. He went around and, saw those online, and he noticed that some people were trying to look for a quick fix whenever they came to WorkBenchCon, a silver bullet that's going to fix all of their problems. And that is not where the value is. And that's maybe not where you should be looking to get out of it. It's the little things that add up to making your entire business. And John made an announcement that shocked most people in the room. John is full-time YouTube creator now. So I'm sharing his news with everyone who's watching this. So congratulations, John. I am proud of you and hope that you're going to continue to have lots of success. The first session that I went to was on storytelling, and going into it, I thought that maybe they would tell us, the structure of a good story and so forth. But Eric from A Craftsman's Legacy gave us a great example of a story. And he talked for an hour and a half and gave his story. And some of the things that I took out of that was that they were to keep the interest of everyone. There's no lulls in the story. He kept with the plot of the story. He followed that guideline of setting the foundation, letting you become familiar with the subject, allowing you to see a conflict and then a climax in the story, and then follow through to a resolution of that. Some of the things he talked about was he was telling his own story. But I'll just give you a couple of key things in it. Years ago, 1998, he was diving, and he was with his brother, and they were going with a group to dive down to a shipwreck. And when he got, about 80 feet down, others had gone ahead, but he started feeling a strange warmth come up from his feet up into his body, and he froze, and he was panicking. And then as that intensified, he rushed his way to the surface, pulling on the guide rope to get back to the surface. And as he approached the surface, he calmed down and was able to maintain his breathing and not have such shallow breathing. But it turns out that later he had more of these attacks, and he found out that he was having panic attacks, and it almost became crippling to him. And he, got to where he wouldn't go on planes and wouldn't go do other activities, and and it became where he really needed some help. And he had been an engineer, but a friend asked him, if you could do anything, what would you do? He said, I'd make stuff. I would, I like motorcycles. I think I'd like working with metal. And he started taking the steps in his life to go down that road. And he ended up being the business owner, starting up Voodoo Choppers, making custom motorcycles, and ended up starring on shows on the Discovery Channel where he had competitions, and then developed his own show. And it was a good story. It's a good example for us, I think, how we can think about story. People are captivated with a good story, but we need to understand that flow. Well, that led into the next session I went to, called Streamline Your Creative Process. And Bao, that's BAO, from Design Craft Workshop, he went through and gave us several pointers. One of the things he went through was the life cycle of a story. That you start out and you have your content and your conflict, and you get to that peak, and that's the climax of the story. And then you have the resolution and solution. He said, if you're making a video, sometimes that can be as simple as, I need a cutting board. I'm having struggles making my cutting board. I'm finally able to finish my cutting board, and then resolve it at the very end by showing all the beauty shots of your cutting board on the video. And that kind of storytelling might be able to captivate audiences and keep them watching. He also says you need to focus on your audience, because one thing that can make a bad story is telling a good story to the wrong audience. If you're talking about something that has no interest to the audience that you're giving it to, then it's going to be. So you need to know your audience, but you need to define your audience. So YouTube has over 2.1 billion users in the world active, and in the United States alone, there's 122 million that are active every day. So on any day, there are 122 million users. Well, if you could narrow that down to less than 1% of that audience, that's still looking at 1.2 million users in a day. That is your potential audience. Instagram has similar numbers, but they're less, obviously. But even at 13,000 plus for your 1% on Instagram, that's still per day is significant. But one thing we need to consider is that there is an audience for everybody. So if you have content, and you want to make things, there is an audience. You just got to make the right content for the right audience. But 3 big questions to ask yourself. Who are you trying to reach? Write it down. Who are you trying to reach? Number two, why should they care? If you're producing a video and you're trying to reach an audience, why do they care about that video? And number three, what will they gain out of it? What are they going to walk away? What kind of experience are they going to have? And how are they benefiting from the content that you're sharing? Whenever you look at statistics, a lot of times the demographics of an audience might include the gender, age, income, those type of items. But knowing your audience, what drives your audience, is even better than those items. Knowing how much income someone makes that might be watching your channel might be important, but knowing what they need out of that video is more important. And sometimes that's hard to define, and you have, through experimentation, define that over time, but define the audience that you're trying to reach first. Whenever you're making a video, he stresses setting out a script first, and he talked about some of the tools, but I won't go into all those details. He talked about the lighting. It's a visual format, videos are, and the right lighting makes all the difference of whether someone can enjoy it to its fullest. So the lighting on your videos is very important. So if you are looking at filming with something besides just your camera, then you need to learn ISO, aperture, shutter speed, resolution, frame rate, rolling shutter speed, these type of things. And he talked about each of those in detail, but I won't bore you with that here. If you are interested in that kind of thing, Suman was on as a guest and discussed some of those, so you could go back and look at that video or search it up, and there's a lot of information out there. I went to another session by Chris and Nathan, and they were talking about how to keep your hobby profitable. You're trying to make a little money, and I know not all hobbies are. You may think, I'm just doing this for fun, but if you could make enough income to fuel the hobby, you got to fuel the machine, keep it going. And I think that was interesting. They discussed, one of the things that hit home to me was they discuss a pivot in life whenever you're a creator, because trying to put out videos every week, every other week can be very stressful. But what happens when life happens? You need to be aware how it affects your relationships with others, how it's affecting you, what your state of mind is, what your mental health, and all these things come into play. And the more you can prepare for those times when you need to take a break, the better. So if we can get a video ahead, in our video production, that type of thing, it's the same thing with any hobby or business. If you can have a plan for when things don't go perfect, if you can get ahead in production, whether you're selling your woodworking on the side or you're making video content for YouTube, then it would be good, and it would help you be at ease and help you control your mental health. The conference went on. The opportunities to socialize and to network with each other was fantastic. Everybody seemed to be having fun. Then we had our closing ceremonies, and Ann of all trades was the keynote speaker leading us out of the conference, and she gave an emotional, poignant message. Some of the points, she talked about included, don't compare yourself to others. It's that saying, like Think Media says, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. And don't look at social media so much. Looking at social media, one of the human conditions, everybody thinks they're going to be effective, but and just use it for communication. But so often the human condition makes us, whenever we're on social media, compare ourselves to others. And that can cause us to be discouraged or have doubt or have jealousy instead of being, happy for someone else's success. You start comparing what did, I'm putting as much effort in as they are. Why are they having all this success and I'm struggling? And she suggested instead, compare yourself to your former self. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, she was struggling, volunteering, to at a soup kitchen just so she could have some of the leftovers to bring home. And that's what they had to survive on at the time. Now she's thriving. So whenever she has a problem now that really gets her down, reflecting, comparing where she was to now, she's doing great. What's she's so stressed about? I think that is part of the human condition that we may not intend to do, but we look on social media, we look at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, we see that someone else's channel is thriving whenever we, don't see that they're working any harder or that much more talented. And we start making these comparisons, and it's only going to make us feel bad. There's nothing to gain by that onset. Try to install some moments of being thankful for the things that you do have. And I think that's a good practice to get in. And I'm going to try it myself more often, is express to myself and to others and to God what I'm thankful for, and offset some of that negative energy that comes naturally by comparing yourself to others. Instead, I'm going to look back and say, where was I 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and where am I now? I know for myself, 10 years ago, I wasn't thinking about having a live stream YouTube channel. And it's one of the rewarding things in my life right now. And I'm grateful for it. It's been a great conference, and Monday, AJ from AJ Built This will be on, and we're going to reflect and talk about some of the other benefits and maybe some of the negatives that came out of and in WorkBenchCon, and what we think we may do in the future. I'm still at the hotel. I need to get out of here. My wife is texting. I got to go.